What's up, everyone, and welcome back for April draft class updates. We've officially hit the end of the college basketball season, so shout out to the Michigan Wolverines for winning it all. They were my pick to win, so quick flex on my end. If you're new here, I'm going to have instructions on the screen for how to download my draft class. I'm going to start someplace new this month and just kind of announce that I have sort of revamped or started revamping Tendencies in the draft class. So the first place I've kind of started is with the 3-point tendency. I basically did a statistical distribution on the 3-point rate on all the players in the draft class, and I applied 3-point tendencies accordingly. So you'll see like guys like Isaiah Evans, who obviously shoot a lot of their shot diet as threes. They have an extremely high 3-point tendency. Christian Anderson's another guy, Braylon Mullins, etc. I also updated foul tendency by doing the exact same thing. So someone like AJ Dybantsa has an extremely low foul tendency, which honestly kind of doesn't bode well for his defensive projection. While guys like Patrick Gongba have a very high foul tendency, since he doesn't play a lot of minutes and he still finds himself in foul trouble quite a lot. So this is super important to keep in mind because one of the new players I added into the draft class was Allen Graves from Santa Clara. In case you're not familiar with Allen Graves, he's been quite the analytics darling in the NBA draft space, despite the fact that he was coming off the bench for Santa Clara this year. His steal rate in particular is pretty phenomenal for his position. It's actually probably in the top 5 of steal rates I've seen in relevant draft prospects ever, which is pretty significant. Matisse Thybulle by far leads that category. But he has really great hands. I honestly think that's his best individual attribute, and that's reflected in the draft class as well. Great hands defensively, is just a good stocks generator on the defensive end, even though he's not the most traditionally athletic player. He has really good hand-eye coordination. On top of that, his offensive rebound rate is fantastic as well, and he could stretch out to 3. So he has a really unique package of skills that I think at his best, he could be a very significant role player in like a Kyle Anderson, Tari Eason kind of mold. But the thing with Allen Graves is, even though he has these great statistical indicators, he does foul a lot. So he's right up there in foul tendency with Patrick Gongba in the draft class, despite having these great steal and decent block attributes. Most places you'll look have Allen Graves as a very late first round pick. Most people who are very analytical in how they tend to think about prospects have him much higher even, but he has already declared for the draft, and he's also entered the transfer portal. So he kind of is 1 foot in, 1 foot out with options to enter or return back to school. Krivas is the next player that I added this month. Very straightforward archetype of player that Krivas is. He's very much a drop big who could protect the rim, is just a massive presence at 7'2". So he kind of reminds me archetype wise of like a Donovan Clingan. I don't think he is the same level of shot blocker and rim deterrent as Donovan Clingan, but the concept is the same. Just a large bodied individual who's best in a drop coverage, rebounds the ball well, and can contest and block shots pretty well. Also on the offensive end, he has a nice post hook and has shown signs that he can even hit the mid-range jumper a little bit. Also a really brutal screener at times too. So that just makes him a pretty valuable piece to have as like a backup center option on a team. The last player I added into the draft class for this month was Trevon Brazile. And the pitch for Trevon Brazile is just how much of a freak athlete Trevon Brazile is. He actually participated in the combine in 2024, and I'll add some graphics on the screen from an app that I made just showing how he measured compared to his positional peers on average. So looking at my app here, Trevon Brazile had the 4th best combine performance, ignoring weight and hand size. So you can see the list of other guys here. Cedric Coward ranks just ahead of him. Individually, looking at his stats, he just blows power forwards out of the water when it comes to wingspan, speed, in vertical leap. He's over the 90th percentile when it comes to his speed and when it comes to his vertical jump. And these percentiles are out of all players and not just compared to the position. And then lastly, getting a little bit more specific on the numbers and how crazy it is. First of all, he has a 41-inch vertical, and this man is 6'9". So if you look at all power forwards and centers since 2000, Trevon Brazile has the 5th highest max vertical ever recorded, just behind Kashad Johnson, who literally just won the dunk contest this year. And then second, his sprint speed was 3.09 seconds, which is like 0.01 seconds slower than Dwayne Wade and Russell Westbrook, which is pretty much as close as it gets. So if you're wondering why Trevon Brazile has a 90 plus vertical and why he has an 86 speed, this is exactly why. So that's kind of the baseline for Trevon Brazile, is this insane athlete with great measurables. On top of that, he's improved his jump shot quite a lot. So he's actually a person that you have to respect from the 3-point line on pops when he's running screen and pop action. I think the one thing I kind of noticed in his statistical profile is his extremely low assist rate. If you look at big men who have an assist rate at the level that Trevon Brazile has, it's a bit of a red flag. So again, keep that in mind with Trevon Brazile, but I think he's going to be one of the most fun 2K players that you could pick in this draft. Like, anybody who's got a 3-point shot and who's got a dunk in like the 90s is just automatically going to be a monster. So now that the season is over, I know a lot of you are probably asking what's next with my draft class. And I can answer that in 2 pieces. So number one, obviously I can't do dynamic attribute updates anymore, but I will still be reevaluating players in this draft class, and I can make micro adjustments to player ratings. Number 2 is there's still a couple of things that are happening in the draft landscape. We still have the combine that's coming up in May. We're going to get updated measurements for all players, and we're going to get their athletic testing results as well, which is going to be a big factor with the players' athletic traits in the game. So those are 2 things to keep an eye on, as well as, of course, the transfer portal and players entering and withdrawing their name from the draft. I'll make the adjustments to the players accordingly. So now let's transition to our usual dynamic attribute updates, and this is going to be the last really stats-based one of the season. So starting with Darryn Peterson, he actually went down by 1 overall. I finally made the tough decision to bring him down to 80 overall. I don't think you can really look somebody in the face and say that Darryn Peterson's season went to your expectations. A lot of that is reflected in how I first perceived his floater and his mid-range shooting, and how it actually panned out from a percentage standpoint. So his close shot percentage is fine, but I thought he was going to be elite in that particular area of the floor. I know he has an ambidextrous floater. I know he can deploy it from like 15 feet. I did a whole thread on Twitter basically outlining the things I loved about Darryn Peterson in high school, but we have to get real at some point. The finishing numbers weren't amazing. They were also fine. I think he was under 60% on his layups. Something that were going well in his favor were like his draw foul. He was doing a better job at getting to the free throw line down the season. The steals looked better down the stretch as well. So a little bit of a disappointing ending for Darryn Peterson and kind of a tumultuous season. But to be honest with you, I feel like I'm still kind of being generous. I haven't touched his athleticism attributes at all. He still has some strong badges despite me taking away the mini marksman and bailout. But let's be honest, he really should not have any passing badges based on what we observed this year. But what I will say is that slippery off ball is like a badge I have him on the bubble on. I might end up giving him that badge, because I think more than just his ability to create separation off ball is like his feel for scoring off the ball is really good. Once he catches the ball off a cut, he has a good sense of how much space he has to operate with. He can operate in tight spaces really well, whether that's shooting, putting the ball on the floor, etc. Looking long term at Darryn Peterson in my draft class, he is actually now tied for the highest expected value in the draft class. So I lowered his expected value a little bit by lowering his boom percentage specifically. So now instead of standing alone at number 1 like he used to, now there's competition. And I think that's fair because there's a lot of questions that we don't know about Darryn Peterson regarding his health. I don't think we as outsiders are really going to get answers to those questions. Those are the things that NBA teams are going to find out when they do their intel, they do their research around the combine, and when they bring him in for workouts. But I still think at his best, when he hits his peak, he can still have the highest ceiling out of anybody in this draft. Next up is Dybantsa, who also kind of went out tough in the tournament against Texas. I know he didn't really have much help on his team. You got to see the highs and lows of Dybantsa in that game, which is what I really appreciated about that performance. He nearly dropped 40 points. But the thing I appreciate now for this month's update is being able to look more bird's eye view at Dybantsa as a prospect. Specifically defensively, you could see I made some changes here. Looking at him at his foul rate, like I hinted at earlier, I don't really think bodes well for him as a defensive player at the next level. If you just take a look at a bunch of the players I've assessed in the last 15-ish years of the draft process, look at the group of players who've averaged 2.5 or fewer fouls per 100 possessions. AJ was at 2, and this isn't exactly a peer group you want to be in. First of all, there's not that many forward-sized players who are in this group. Second of all, the players who are kind of outliers in this group at least contribute something in the steals and blocks category. AJ is below 2% in both of those. So you kind of have to wonder, like, what's he going to contribute on the floor as a defender? Is he aggressive enough as a defender? Is he going to apply enough pressure on the wing? I will say, though, I did bump up his min potential, so it's now at 86, and his expected value is tied with Darryn Peterson as number 1 in the draft class. So he's still a fantastic player, I believe, in his offensive ceiling for sure. You'll see I actually upped his post fadeaway to 79, which is actually the highest post fadeaway rating of a rookie of all time. I think Victor Wembanyama is the only other one who had a 79. And lastly, in the big three, we have Cam Boozer, and I don't really think much needs to be said about Cam Boozer. He literally just had one of the best freshman seasons that we've ever seen. Analytically was maybe the best freshman we've ever seen in the 2000s, especially. So a lot of the changes I made were, again, like looking more bird's eye at Cam Boozer. Like, he wasn't shooting any mid-range jump shots, so I had to kind of bump his mid-range shooting down. I also had to put a little bit more respect on Cameron Boozer just as a post player on the interior. I bumped his post control up to 80. His perimeter defense had to go down a little bit, and then everything else was just catching up on his statistical profile. But again, like, this dude is a fantastic basketball player. Whoever lands Cameron Boozer is going to get really lucky, despite maybe the shot contesting that he might struggle with and perimeter defense. Whatever questions you might have about Cameron Boozer, you can't deny that he is shaping up to be arguably one of the most productive rookies that we'll encounter. Next player I want to talk about is actually Caleb Wilson. And just speaking generally, I really hope it doesn't get lost how great of a prospect Caleb Wilson is. This particular update for this month is more of a post-mortem update versus an attributes-based update, because he actually didn't play any games because he broke his hand. Wasn't able to play down the stretch of the season and in the postseason, unfortunately. So Caleb did declare for the NBA draft already, so that's pretty good. I expect him to be in the top 4 conversation and even to go as high as number 2 for some teams. But anyway, the area I really wanted to make sure was highlighted for Caleb Wilson was his post offense. I thought he was very effective as a post-up player, despite being pretty raw in terms of his like traditional post-up fundamentals, your post-hook type of game. I did think his post fade was pretty effective as well. And despite the fact that I did dock his mid-range shot a little bit, he is really effective from that range. He shot about 44% from mid-range on pretty solid volume. So overall, he's not a non-shooter. The other area I wanted to make sure was highlighted was his dunking. The reason I actually upped it this time, I was watching a video on Blake Griffin in his sophomore year at Oklahoma. He had 90 dunks in his sophomore year at Oklahoma, and had Caleb Wilson played the rest of his games and maintained his dunk rate, he actually would have surpassed Blake Griffin's dunk total at Oklahoma his sophomore year. So I had to respond appropriately. I still don't think he's as good of a dunker as Blake Griffin. Obviously, we're talking about one of the best dunkers of all time in the NBA even. So I still wanted to make sure Caleb Wilson had the appropriate amount of respect though. And you see now his dunk sits in the 90s. And his overall rating now is up to 79. So I think he's right up there. Not quite tier 1 for me, but he has clearly separated himself into a tier 2 still. I think there's a pretty big drop off between Caleb Wilson and the next set of prospects in the draft class. Of course, I have to talk about Darius Acuff Jr. this month. He led his team to the SEC championship in March. The thing about Darius Acuff is I don't really feel like I was underrating his attributes. He's really just raised his usage and maintained his efficiency. And he's just had a really heavy workload for Arkansas all year. So I tried to make sure that was respected with his badges in particular. So he and Bennett Sturts just carry a crazy amount of workload if you look at how many minutes they play and what they do on the floor. So that's why he has that silver handle for days. Also gave him ankle assassin for sure and strong handle. But the one area that Darius Acuff really did improve his game down the stretch was drawing fouls. That's something I mentioned on the outset during my first draft class update video. Was Darius Acuff was a little bit lower than I expected at drawing fouls. He's kind of brought that right back up. So that has a big effect on overall rating. Speaking of overall rating, he's gone up by 1 and I bumped his potential up by 2. So even though on the surface attributes wise, it doesn't look like I changed a lot, his upside has actually significantly changed. And right now he and Kingston Flemings are tied for having the same expected value, and they have the highest expected value of the point guards in this draft class. Keaton Wagler had a great end to his season for Illinois as well, leading them to a Final Four appearance. The two main areas I really needed to update on Keaton Wagler were, number one, his shooting. So I watched Derek Parker's excellent scouting video on Keaton Wagler, and he kind of dropped some synergy gems. I can't afford synergy, so I can just relay the information to you, but Keaton Wagler basically shot 42% on guarded catch and shoot shots, and he shot 40% in general overall on all his threes. So 42% on guarded shots definitely made me want to give him the Deadeye badge. Additionally, Keaton Wagler shot 60% of his shots off the dribble, and 80% of those shots were threes, and he shot 37% on 147 jumpers off the dribble, which is excellent according to Synergy. So I had to give him shifty shooter to go along with that. So those are the two kind of major updates that I made for Keaton Wagler. I thought his overall rating was low relative to where his draft stock sits. So you can see his intangibles rating is pretty high. He's one of those guys who 2K doesn't really respect just because he doesn't have really good athletic tools. He didn't have a single dunk this season at all. He's not the fastest guy, and he doesn't have extreme physical traits for his position. He's only 6'6". He is a shooting guard. So yeah, 2K tends to underrate players like that, and he's not really great on defense either. But I think his shot creation and his ability to score on the perimeter, as well as his fluidity, that in particular isn't really captured by 2K. So I made up the difference with the intangibles rating. Next, I want to quickly cover the biggest risers and fallers in the draft class for April. So the two biggest winners were Tarris Reed and Braden Burries. I talked about Braden Burries last month and how his stock has been going up. And Tarris Reed had a fantastic NCAA tournament despite falling short in the championship game. And then everybody else in this list you can see has a positive change in their EV. Next, talking about the biggest fallers this month, you have Cole Pete and you have Braylon Mullins. So these are the two guys I mentioned in my draft guide video I had question marks about. Honestly, those questions I don't think were answered very well. Braylon Mullins, I think, has shown some things that he can do outside of just shooting. Showed some real fight as an offensive and defensive rebounder. Can heat the ball up as well on defense, but overall, I think I still was a little bit higher on Braylon Mullins compared to consensus. Everyone else in the table is just who had a negative shift in their EV compared to last month. Now let's talk badge updates from last month. There are 5 that I really want to highlight here, starting with Adai Mara, and I upgraded his break starter from bronze to silver, and I gave him Aerial Wizard. Obviously, he's known as one of the best outlet passers in the draft, up there with Cameron Boozer, and he just catches lobs so easily at 7'3". Have to give him the Aerial Wizard and respect that. Yaxel Lendeborg, I also gave him break starter, but he's at bronze, and then I gave him Immovable Enforcer as well. Also a good outlet passer, and he can actually play pretty solid perimeter defense, and his big frame kind of enables him to get stops as a perimeter defender a lot of times. Hannes Steinbach, I upgraded his box out beast from bronze back to silver. He got his offensive rebounds up towards the end of the year. Dalen Swain, I gave him rebound chaser at bronze. He probably deserved that from the outset, given how well he rebounds, especially defensively. And then lastly, I gave Kingston Fleming's Deadeye. So I really wanted to respect how hard it is to contest Kingston Fleming's pull-up jump shot in the mid-range, and I thought the Deadeye badge would do the best job at representing that. As always, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for giving my draft class a download, and thanks for getting me to 59,000 downloads. That's amazing. And you guys also helped me get to 1,500 subscribers recently. So shout out to you all. If you guys are enjoying the content, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hope to see you guys at the next one, and hope you have a great day.